You're listening to the CEPA Podcast by the Center for European Policy Analysis. For over 20 years, CEPA has been putting issues that shape Europe and the transatlantic community on the agenda. Today, I'm honored to be joined by General Philippe Lavigne. He's a former Supreme Allied Commander, Transformation, and he's now a distinguished fellow at the Transatlantic Defense and Security Program at CEPA. General Lavigne, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much to invite me. And the topics we are going to talk today is so super important for all the NATO's members.
Well, asking those questions is me, Dr. Carrie Odermatt. I'm a political analyst, and I'm also a CEPA fellow. General Lavigne, you've had a lot of jobs, and I want to start with your last military position, and we'll probably finish the pod talking about one of your first jobs. Like I mentioned, your last position was Supreme Commander of Transformation, and one of your tasks was to transform NATO's capabilities so the alliance could face emerging security challenges. And right after you started in October 2021, NATO approved its first AI strategy. It's 6 principles and they're guidelines. They're not rules. But my first question is, how wide is the spectrum of approaches among alliance members regarding the responsible use of AI?
Well, that's a very important question. And the first thing we have built are these principles about, and they are dealing about ethical, moral matters, how to have a responsible use of AI. And that's not about technology, that was not about use cases, that was about that. And that shows to the world that we are very concerned about all the implementation of all these new emerging and disruptive technology. And we are beginning by this because we've got values, because we've got ethics, because we know what is at stake. And of course now, because of the rhythm of our adversaries, because we need to keep the advantage in order to preserve the peace and in order to deliver stability and prosperity. Now we are moving to the implementation of AI in all domains, regarding, of course, and strictly following the principle, the 6 principle we have delivered in this AI strategy in 2021.
But if not everyone's on the same page for how they perceive these standards and how they want to use AI in their own militaries, what does this mean for developing common NATO standards for interoperability?
I think that's AI is a tool for sensing, understanding, deciding, and acting. As we are an alliance, we are interoperability is key to develop in order to bring all the best from our nations and of course to win as a team. The differences, interoperability is not only technological interoperability, it's human interoperability, it's process interoperability, it's training. And it's through the training that we are showcasing, demonstrating the way to develop AI in our military for defense and security. And so, and of course, when we are talking about training, it's not only training among us, the 32 nations, but it's also with our partners. And that's super important to train with our partners to bring this through this interoperability, the way we are building a trustable AI for the future.
So you really hit the ground running in your position. In 2021, you introduced the AI strategy for NATO. Then in 2022, we saw the beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion. Since 2022, we've particularly seen a growth in use of autonomous systems. How has this kind of defense technology evolved since 2022 and in your military career in general?
As you say, it is not new. What is new is the number and the agility to create new things and to produce things and to put them on the battlefield. And that's super new. And what is also new is this digital transformation mindset, where before we were platform centric, and now we are switching to software centric. That means that we need to build around the data and to be sure that the systems are open, agnostic of any sensors or effectors. That's also another philosophy. And that's the big shift in this unmanned autonomous new warfare. And of course, autonomous means a lot of opportunities, but it means also a lot of challenges. And we have seen that, and we are looking at what does it mean in this war in Ukraine. And the evolution was first in the air, because in Ukraine, the air campaign was not the one the air campaign was not good enough to take the control of the air. So that means that then comes the weapons from the air, and of course these light unmanned air vehicle are not bringing just sensors, but also effectors and weapons. Then comes the what we have seen very quick are these unmanned sea vehicles, and what amazing example Ukrainians have given us in the Black Sea, for example. I must say that in NATO we have developed them and especially where I was in ACT and this transformation command. We have worked a lot with, for example, the Portugal and our Center for Maritime Research in La Spezia, Italy, to bring all kind of unmanned system on the sea, above the sea, and under the sea to build a common operating picture with AI. And the next step was this Task Force X in the Baltic Sea, with these Baltic Sentry Ops to protect, to surveil this this undersea cable, for example. And now what we are the last part, I must say, of the family are the unmanned ground vehicles, and that's that's the beginning. We've got some example last at the end of the year in 2024 in Ukraine. We have seen the first combat action with only unmanned system and air vehicles for the SA and for the targeting and unmanned ground vehicle on the ground with some fire effectors on them. So it's coming. And when you are looking at what for example, the US Army Command, the Future Command is thinking about unmanned system. When I was there, they were saying to me, well, in 2040, we will have 40% of unmanned system. Okay, 2040, 40% is a good advertisement, but it means that it will be a lot. It will be a lot. And so we need to be able, and it's not only about ramping up the production of these things. It's very important, of course, because Ukraine is producing millions of drones when Europe is producing less than them. So it's a question of ramping up the production, but it's also adapting the equipment to the effect, the desired effect the effect you want to get from them. So it's mass production, numbers, but also agility, adaptability to the battlefield, to the warfare that it's increasingly changing at the speed of relevance.
You mentioned the Baltic Sea, and that's where there's a lot of hybrid gray zone activities happening. I want to bring in a question that goes back to 2003, 2005, when you were in the Paris-based Joint Strategic Planning and Command Operations Center, and you were part of some peacekeeping and humanitarian operations. Looking back now, was there any indication of how migration had the potential to be weaponized?
That's a super good question. And if I'm back with because you mentioned what we have done in AC, when I was in NATO with this AI strategy, etc. I think there is also one big piece is this NATO warfighting capstone concept, how to tackle the challenge of the future. And we put that on the table in 2021 also. But in 23, we revitalized this strategic foresight analysis. What are the what are the drivers of change of tomorrow? And of course, there were the climate breakdown. Okay, but there is also this scramble for the commons. And of course, we were talking about polar region, IC contestation, transportation. But also another one was about resource scarcity. And when you have got resource scarcity, then you've got migration because people want to have food, they need water. And the war in Ukraine has shown that there is also this weaponization of loving energy, food also. So I think it's not only there is not only one challenge of mass migration. Of course, it is, but it is what is really hard to fight is the combination of all these things. And it's why we have worked a lot on these multi-domain operations, where it's not only military, okay, you synchronize all the, you orchestrate all the military domain, but you need to synchronize with the civilian side of the house. That means that it's energy, it's human, it's mass migration, it's food, it's and it's the cognitive, it's the disinformation and information. So it's our people. So it's super important. And of course, what we have seen during the beginning of the war. So and Poland can talk about that, and of course Estonia and Finland can talk about that. This mass migration, either coming from Russia or Belarus, in order to disorganize our societies. Over to you.
So you mentioned countries on NATO's eastern flank, and part of your role as a supreme commander is fundamentally about uniting the member nations. And how do you approach maintaining cohesion in the NATO alliance when there were clearly members that had divergent threat perceptions after 2022?
Well, I must say there is the political level, and I will let the political authorities to do what they have done. And very frankly speaking, I have seen the Secretary General, when I was there, working a lot on this center of gravity, which is the unity. Working a lot, and it's a daily business, and because it's the center of gravity, and of course, if you are an adversary and you succeed to break it, even without a bullet, without an ammunition, you are the winner. So that's why. So that's at the political level. I think that at the military level, there are different ways of doing that. First is to work, for example, and to validate this strategic foresight analysis. What are the risks? And it's a lot of talks, negotiation, diplomacy, but also good sense, experience, knowledge. It's about, and diversity is our force. That means that if you need to know what are the challenges in the southeast of NATO, then of course you will ask to Turkey, you will ask to Romania, you will ask, and if you want to talk about Arctic, you will ask to Norway, you will ask to Finland now, and Canada and others. So I think that it is bringing the experts on the table, let them talk, bring their own perspective, and find the best way of keeping the edge. And then you can go for training. You can go for, and of course, you can go for wargaming. You can go for, and then in the military, we are used to do that. We used to work on the strength and the weakness. We used to, and there is no no differences at the military staff. Of course, there are differences of level of training, but at the end, because of this goal to protect 1 billion people, we are more united than some wants to say we are not.
You're listening to the CEPA Podcast. CEPA is a think tank where academics, researchers, and analysts answer big foreign policy, security, and strategic questions. And my next question for retired General Philippe Lavigne has to do with the changing balance between the EU and NATO. EU member states just announced major defense budget increases, reversing basically decades of underfunding, and they're exceeding the NATO 2% guideline. This means that the EU's defense spending could transform Europe's defense industry, but it could also redefine the balance between the EU and NATO and their respective roles in European security. how would you like to see the relationship between NATO and the EU evolve?
I'm French. I'm European in my mind, my heart, and I'm NATO because NATO is as bring is the most the 70th. We've got this 75th anniversary, so it's the longer alliance, and it brings so much to the stability of Europe, and it's still attractive. 75 years old, still attractive. Finland and Sweden are the new members, and others wants to join. So it's what a shift. What 2022. What this new strategy concept. The ramping up of the budget for our defense is coming from 2014 with the Welsh summits, but the real increases. What I say with my friend, the former Sacker, is because we put on the table what we need now in order to keep in this new environment, and it's much more, and we need it faster. And we need it cheaper in order to sustain what we need more. So now nations, and it was validated at the last LAIC summit. They know what they have to develop, and because it's more, it don't have it didn't have it's not because we need more. It has to be, and we are going to put more money on the table. It has going to be more expensive. No. Because we need more, it has to be smarter, developed, smarter used, and of course sustainable. So I really believe in a better, stronger European defense pillar in the NATO. NATO will always be the where we will build the military plans in order to protect every inch of the alliance and to keep us ahead in order to deter. It means that, of course, we need to reorganize, and there are a lot of works on that, and even US is working on that, to reorganize our defense industry base in order to take into account this strategic evolution we need to make faster, better, and more. Of course, and if I'm taking the example of Finland and Sweden, you've got the 5G, and you are the best in 5G. So when I was thinking about the next gen core communication system, 5G is something very important. US, they don't have such, but they've got other things. So how to mix 5G, space, AI, and all this technology in order to get this connection, this real-time connectivity, secure connection we need. It's a team effort, and it's where we need definitively to work together. So for me, and it was the new SecGen Mark Rutte and Madame von der Leyen who brought that to the table very quick after the accession of the new Secretary General. This high task force between EU and NATO, military mobility, space, communication, all these things. There are so many opportunities in Europe to bring something to the table for the goods of all. So for me, definitively, it's a huge opportunity, and either for EU, for the Europe, and for NATO to get this new commitment.
General Lavigne, I didn't mention that you were friends France. I didn't mention that you were French, but since you brought it up, you were in the French, well, it's now called the French Air and Space Force for over 40 years. And you still play rugby. And you're known for the motto to win as a team. But France is often seen as a really difficult partner in defense equipment development cooperation. So, how do you reconcile France's emphasis on strategic autonomy and its reputation for unilateralism with this need for deeper European collaboration in defense and procurement?
Well, I think that it's thank you, and it's a good question. In a team, you need the best athletes in all the in the back, in the scrum, in the wing, we need the best. So the guys have to train hard and to be strong. So that means it's the same for the nations. It doesn't mean that and some nations are better than others in the digital era and digital stuff. Estonia is so good in that. Robotics also, Estonia is very good. Space, there are different. US, of course, is in space and especially in counter space and in EW. Well, they are, but everybody has to be better than yesterday. There is, when you are an alliance, and I'm not going on the floor of the political authorities, but I must say that I'm a citizen, so I understand the political authorities. I think that's it's understandable that a nation wants to have the power to decide with the right intel. And I think that in history, we have seen that sometimes the intel was not so good. So that's the sovereignty that France is pushing. I mean that you need to be, and of course today, because of all this disinformation, you need to work so hard to get the good from the bad news. That's a thing. I think that France also has a history with General de Gaulle and with the nuclear deterrence. He had a vision. He gave to France the ability to get that. US, they've got that. UK, they've got that also. And today we are talking a lot about that. And that's, and I remind you that in these times, France was out of the military command of NATO. So yes, we are special, but now today we are working a lot to build this this team with the good points we have built in the past, like as the nuclear deterrence, but also this philosophy of you need to know what you really in order to take decision. And then what I'm saying as a team member is we need more. We need more. The cake is bigger. So we need more cooperation, of course, because some country they can't build the big thing, and because we are thinking more system agnostic of, we need more satellite. It could be governmental satellite, it could be commercial satellites, so the partnership. It could be unmanned system flying with sensors. It could be EW on a ship. It could be. So what I mean is, you can add your specificity, but at the end, we need all of that. And we need to be sure that we are interoperable. Interoperable is the way and France is working a lot on that interoperability and this ability to play as a team. And if I'm looking at all the training we are doing in NATO, is the way also to be a good member of the team.
I said I would start with your last job and end with your first job. Let's go back to when you joined the French Air Force Academy in 1985. You became a pilot in 1989, and that was before the Cold War ended. Europe's security situation is evolving, and there's a return to the reform of or the reintroduction of national conscription in many countries. The German Bundeswehr wants like 60,000 more soldiers. 68% of French support mandatory service. What role do you see for mandatory service in strengthening not only national resilience, but alliance cohesion in the face of today's really complex security challenges for Europe?
That's super. Yes, and thank you very much to bring that to the table, because in ACT the T is for talent, because without talents you are nothing and you can't do nothing. So and what I've learned also a lot during this last tour in NATO is what the other nations are doing, for example, Finland and Sweden, in this whole society approach. Of course, Norway has also his own, but there are already examples to bring on the table and share the best practices. But you can't apply the same thing in Germany, in Italy, or in Canada, for example. So it's the mindset. The thing is, definitively, it's not only something for the defense, it's something for the security. And because defense and security are totally linked today and tomorrow, because of the threats, because of these hybrid threats, it means that, and also because when armed forces can win a battle, it's the nations who are going to win the war. And so we need nations and the people to take part in this protection, deterrence and protection of our territories. There are other ways also to do that. I remember talking to IT guys, IT big guys in the US, but also in Europe, and I was, because I've got this example of these IT companies bringing more than help in Ukraine at the very beginning of the war, or just beginning. And in NATO, we are in a phase of digital transformation. Part of it's education of talents. Okay, we can hire some, but it's quite complicated. It's quite difficult to hire them because the salary in the private companies are high. But it's not difficult to bring civil military partnership to understand what are our challenges and how to bring these IT guys, which is we can call them IT reserve, to when we need it, because they know our challenges and the way we are working, bring the level to keep the edge. Because through years, we will increase our level in the armed forces, talking about IT, but we will be at that level when the civilian sector will be there. And if we want to win the war, we need to be there. and very quickly. And so if we can link these IT civilian people and our IT and ops people, we will manage these this challenge, of course. So it's not only for defense; it's for security. And for example, there was this idea, for example, in France uh, of bringing the young people. It's not good to go back in history and to do exactly the same and to translate it. It's quite complicated. Um, but the idea was okay. The young people, 16 years old, you can uh, um, you can go for a national service, a service for your nation. It could be to fight the fires. It could be for the medics. It could be for the IT. It could be for when I say IT, it's cyber or protection. It could be, of course, it could be defense, etc. So that's, I think, the way to involve these young people to the needs to this old society approach.
General Lavigne, you've mentioned sovereignty and domestic interests several times in our conversation. And borders seem to be shifting as international law is being tested, particularly in the Arctic. What are your impressions on what's happening there and the importance of defining who controls what area?
Well, I think, and you have seen that in NATO now for 4 years, and of course with Finland and Sweden inside, there is a huge commitment to to take even more seriously this strategic imperative to be better in this area. If you are looking at, of course, with this communication line coming from east to west and entering in the Atlantic through the Arctic and first through close to the Russian borders coast, and then in some years go to Canada, and then in the middle. So and then you've got Canada and US, and then you've got Greenland, you've got Iceland, and you've got this GI UK gap, which is super important for us because it's where the protection, for example, of our nuclear submarine deterrence is beginning. Is to protect. You can't. You have to protect more in the north in order to be sure that you can do things in the south. So that's super important. And there are these new regional plans in NATO. North, east, central, and southeast. And so with these two new allies and with these new regional plans, you have to, I'm talking about at the military level, you have to figure out how to be the best to tackle the challenge in coming from the Arctic to the Atlantic. So it means a lot of reorganization. GFC Norfolk is the Joint Force Command for Atlantic and Arctic, but there are consideration to be taken from the Nordics in order, for example, for this multi-land combat component, and but also all these the capabilities and the training we need to have. And of course, it's a sort of it's a race. I must say it's a race to figure out how to be the best in with such a pressure, because it's not only it's also about it's Russia and China, and of course the impact of this climate change that we have to also to take into account. So all of this is living. It's but there is a huge focus, and you can see all these joint these Nordic weapons, this joint Viking 25, all these conferences on the north, and you've got this cold weather center of excellence who is going to have a conference on interoperability, because when you are bringing other players than the Nordics, France and others, Netherlands, you need to work a lot on interoperability in this so particular area. And of course, also science and technology, innovation, etc., etc.
Thank you. And that's it for this episode of the CEPA Podcast. We hope today's conversation was valuable, and we're grateful that you joined us, General Lavigne. Thank you very much. If you enjoyed listening, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can find us on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever else you get your podcasts. And to dive deeper into the issues shaping transatlantic policy, visit CEPA.org, where you'll find more expert analysis and research. And don't forget, you can find us all across social media for the latest updates, thought leadership, and exclusive content. Thanks for listening.